Hello, fellow lovers of the liminal and the weird, and welcome to another video by Liminal Spaces. This is Chris from the future. Just jumping in because I was originally going to do a video that was H, I, and J of my horror library all together, but as I went through, I realized I had a lot of H's and that I wanted to do J separately. Plus, I forgot a few books when I was talking about my J library, so I'm going to quickly introduce 3 books in hardback that are in my J library, and then I'll jump to the older video. So, of course, we've got M.R. James, The Collected Ghost Stories. This is an old folio edition, and it is a wonderful collection. It has illustrations by Francis Mosley, and it was published in 2007. The illustrations are awesome and spooky, and many people consider M.R. James the creator of the ghost story, or the one that boiled it down to its modern form. I saw a wonderful documentary about him on YouTube. I wonder if I can find that again. If I can find it again, I'll post it in the description down below. Really, really interesting writer. I've read a few of his short stories. I think I can't remember what they're called, but yeah, there's some great stories in this one. I will be going over some of his stuff in the channel, most definitely. And how could I forget The Turn of the Screw by Henry James? This one is a Heritage Press version. It's illustrated by Mariette Leitis. I hope I said her name correctly. Great illustrations in this. Oh. It's not a Heritage if you don't have the Sandglass newsletter in there. Yeah, this is an early ghost story. One of the first, and a great one. Really wild story. I think that it was part of the inspiration for Bly Manor. The guy that did Haunting on Hill House also did Bly Manor, which is the story of Turn of the Screw plus another, I think, Henry James scary short story. So, but yeah, this is a classic. You can't really talk about ghost stories without talking about The Turn of the Screw. And then the only first edition that I have by this writer, I wish I had more, but they're so expensive, and that is Life Among the Savages by Shirley Jackson. And this is a really interesting work by her because it's not really horror. She did well in a couple of different genres. Her horror stuff did very well. And of course, the story that made her is The Lottery. It freaked people out so much that people were writing into the New Yorker just absolutely disgusted that they would publish this story. And then she started publishing stories about motherhood and what it meant to be a mother and keep a household and raise a family, and that's what these are. This is a collection of stories, many of them humorous. It's Life Among the Savages, an uneasy chronicle. You can right away from the title, of course, the Savages being her own family, you get a sense of what this book is like. And you can see the picture of her kids on the back there. So yeah, this is a story of what kind of creative nonfiction about being a mother. This is a first edition. It was $3 when it first came out, and it was published in 1953. So, all right, I'm going to turn the video back over to past Chris so that he can go over all of his Shirley Jackson paperbacks, which he loves. All right, thank you. And J, of course, includes one of my absolute favorite horror writers, and that is Shirley Jackson. And I have some wonderful paperbacks by Shirley Jackson. These are not easy to find. They're all from Popular Library. Popular Library seems to have the best of these paperbacks. And this first one here is The Lottery. So it's going to be The Lottery and other short stories. The Lottery is the first thing I ever read by Shirley Jackson, and it absolutely blew my mind. I think it's probably the first folk horror I read, although I don't know if it fits perfectly into that category, but I think it is folk horror. I really do. A gem of satanic shock. Since its original publication touched off a public furor over 20 years ago, The Lottery has taken its place as one of the strangest, most terrifying, and totally unforgettable masterpieces of the macabre ever written. Here is a work of fiction that draws you inexorably into its sinister spell and turns the final screw of horror before you realize how trapped you are. Yeah. Very cool. The Lottery. Next, I have The Road Through the Wall. Now, this is a Shirley Jackson that I have not read, and I believe that it doesn't... And this is the Popular Library again. There's an even scarier cover of this. I'll put it up here right now for just a second so you can see it. That's the really wild cover, but I've never seen that for under $40 anywhere. Plus, it's super creepy. But I don't think this is as much a horror story. That's the interesting thing about Shirley Jackson, is some of her stuff isn't horror, but she sold as a horror writer, so they kind of tried to push it as horror. It's very strange. And I do believe that there is a terrible, tragic thing that happens in this, and it's very horrible. So you could call it for horror for that. But I don't think the entire. I don't know if this really falls under the genre of horror. If you've read it, let me know what you think. Next, we have The Bird's Nest. Who was Elizabeth Richmond? Was she the girl who called herself Elizabeth, a dull, unimaginative creature without feelings or friends? Was she Beth, a sweet, sunny, outgoing young lady who charmed everyone who met her? Was she Betsy, wanton and wild, mocking society and breaking its taboos? Was she Bess, arrogant, spoiled, demanding, a poor little rich girl who had never grown up? No one knew the answer. Not her spinster aunt, or her doctor, or the girl herself. Here is Shirley Jackson's greatest triumph, a novel that takes you into the deepest recesses of a young woman's four-way divided soul, as with mounting suspense you move towards the final shattering revelation of the hidden, startling truth. This is one that I'm going to eventually read. I haven't read it yet, but it sounds like Shirley Jackson doing her Shirley Jackson thing. Again, Popular Library has the wild cover. Look at that egg with the arm coming out of it. Totally cool. Next we have Always Lived in the Castle. This is probably one of my favorite book covers of all time. I absolutely love this. I know that it was eventually reused. The artist put a box cutter in her hand and it was reused for a horror movie. I forgot the name of the horror movie, but this book is incredible. One of my favorite horror books ever. If you'd like to hear my deep read of it, it's on this channel. Really wild. What a cool cover. Yeah, the way that this main character creates witchcraft in her brain is incredible. Really, really wild stuff. Again, the Popular Library cover. Love them. Last but not least, and my second Shirley Jackson favorite novel, is The Haunting of Hill House, of course. This is the Popular Library cover, and it's really, really cool. I think I like this better than the first edition cover. Yeah, we talked about this last time in these videos, this concept of do you want the first edition hardcover or do you want your favorite art? In this case, I like my favorite art more than I do the first edition, although I wouldn't turn down the first edition hardcover. Yeah, this, in my opinion, is the reason that we have The Shining. It took such a unique look at haunting. And I know some people say, well, there is no haunting. Nothing happens in this book, which I absolutely disagree with. I think there's a subtlety to the haunting here that is absolutely incredible. And I think that's true with all Shirley Jackson. There's a subtlety to the horror that is absolutely incredible. I feel like I could talk for hours and never really say how incredible Shirley Jackson really is. Okay, so that's all my Shirley Jackson for the letter J in my horror collection. I'm sorry, there's just no way that I can get all of those out of the glare. Next, I have a book by Ruby Jean Jensen called Night Thunder. The Dead Are Never Quiet. Is this the one that's about Civil War? Yeah. Dawn 1865. As civil war rages across the land, an 11-year-old boy awakens to the sound of thunderous drum beats. 4 days later, his mother is dead, and a strange cult of religious wanderers have been brutally murdered by the terrified local farmers. That night, the boy watches the only survivor, a solemn young girl, plant a sycamore tree over the graves. As long as the tree lives, the dead stay buried. 1995, monstrous bulldozers destroy the tranquil farmland and the old sycamore tree. In the darkness, ancient faces glow with soulless light as an unspeakable evil rises from restless slumber. The sound of drum beats is growing louder and closer. Yeah, cool 80s horror book. Oh, my camera just died, so I'll just put the picture of these covers up. Yeah, this came out in 1995. Now it doesn't matter where I put it because you can't see me. Put it right there. Last but not least, I have K.W. Jeter, Dark Seeker. It will not rest until it has found its prey. This is a Tor horror book. The Host. It was the drug that gave the students a shared consciousness, a consciousness of filth and inhumanity, of horrifying excitement. It was the evil vision that led them to murder. It lurks in Mike Tyler, kept at bay through medication. It is the soul-consuming reality he must confront, for it requires Mike Tyler, his soul, his heart, his mind. Once it has Mike Tyler, it will come for you. Dark Seeker. I don't know, it sounds weird and wild. I don't know anything about K.W. Jeter, but like I said, I just grab these whenever I see them at sales, so that's when I grabbed. So there you go. Those are my J paperbacks in the horror genre.